When was the last time you did a reboot, Chief?
Oh, I have no idea.
Okay.
What's the meeting ID number?
Okay, I can't give you that right now because I'm trying to fix it so we can go live.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But if you go back to your email, you should be able to click on it from your email.
That's what I'm going to do now.
But if you still can't do a reboot,
okay.
Usually a reboot fixes everything.
I've been trying to sign on to this thing for a minute.
I think you guys live now.
Okay.
Oh, we're live now?
Yeah.
Oh,
okay. Sorry.
You're listening to the new WCEG Network on WCEGTalkRadio.com. Click live stream tab or watch us live on your smart TV, YouTube, WCEG Network. I am Damita Chatman, your show host of Take a Stand for the next hour. We're the Wide World Community Empowerment Group. We speak life into the community. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, at WCEG Talk Radio and AMP at WCEG Network. This is the disclaimer. Everything that I say or the guests say is not the show. It's our own opinions. Thank you. I want to thank Chief Meadows and Chief Jones for coming on this Saturday. I think I lost you for a minute. If you give me a few minutes. I want to thank you guys for coming on this Saturday. I want to say congratulations, Chief Jones, for accepting the chief of the best city, I think, in the world.
Yes,
we
ma'am.
got the best. We got the best police chief in America.
Well, thank you, Damita.
Y'all can't do nothing about it. Today we gonna be very comfortable talking about some things that's going on in the city, what you expect in the city. But first of all, Chief Meadows, since you've been here, I'm gonna give Chief Jones, the fire chief, opportunity to introduce himself.
Well, good morning, and thank you for this opportunity, not only to represent the city as the fire chief and lead this fine department and protect the citizens and visitors of the city. I'm very humbled and proud to accept the position. I come from a long line of public safety. I've been in public safety for 30 years, started in 1990 in the city of Atlanta, working on ambulances as an EMT and paramedic. Was able to go to the Atlanta Fire Department in 1995. I worked my way up through the ranks and I retired after 25 years as the Deputy Chief of Support Services. I spent a year down at Coweta County Fire Rescue Department as the Deputy Chief down there, honing my trade, and then accepted the position as the Fire Chief here. So when I first started, I was a high school graduate and I've worked my way up through. I got my associates, my bachelor's, my master's. That's where Keith and I actually went to Columbus State together through the master's program. And we struck up a friendship when we were working in the city of Atlanta. From the development side of the fire, I've been through the executive fire officer. I'm designated as a chief fire officer through CIPSI. I've been to the Harvard Kennedy School for Government, and I'm still currently enrolled in a program at Harvard. So I'm a lifelong learner, and that's what I want to bring to this department as we develop it out, is to develop our people, develop programs, and make this, again, a world-class fire department that everybody is really behind and supportive. And that's kind of my story. I do live in Fayetteville. I was born and raised there in Smyrna and been in Atlanta all my life. So kind of a diehard Braves fan. The Falcons, they break my heart every year, but still support them. And, you know, have seen the city grow over time. So very just humbled and glad to have this opportunity.
Thank you, Chief Jones. You want to give yourself, talk about yourself, Chief Meadows, a little bit?
Yeah, well, you all know me. I've been here coming up on 3 years now, believe it or not, and about the things that we've been able to accomplish. South Fulton Police Department. Obviously, there's room for improvement. We've been able to add to our existing force. We've been able to reduce crime for 3 years running now. And so we want to make sure that we're continuing to build on that as we move forward as a police department and as a city. We've been able to leverage some really good partnerships within our communities, you being one of them. I have to say that you're one of our staunch supporters within the police department, and we certainly enjoy working with many of our community leaders. And so, as we move forward, we want to make sure that we're building and leveraging a network of relationships throughout our community, much like the one that we have with you and so many others in our community. And so the police department right now is in a very good position. We're adding to our specialized and proactive units. We're in the process right now of trying to look at ways that we can get different types of technology out to the community. One of the biggest complaints that we're getting right now is about speeding in many of our areas, and we're looking at investing in some of those speed detection devices that we'll be deploying throughout the city. So it's really an exciting time. We want to make sure that we're leveraging technology in such a way to create efficiencies throughout the city. And so we believe that we're going to be doing that in a very meaningful way over the course of 2021.
Okay, well, thanks. Well, before I go on with you guys, Fire Chief Chad, again, I want to thank you for coming. And back here when we first got the news that you were coming, I did a post, and I think folks kind of took it out the wrong way, but anybody know me know that I kind of speak from the heart. It wasn't towards you. It was just the way I thought. But again, I want to thank you. I'm looking forward to working with you. And I want you to know that I've heard nothing but great things about you. I've talked to some of the fire personnel, even talked to Captain Hall, and she was excited about working with you. And so when they all right, I'm all right. And so I know you're going to do a great job. Like I say,
thank you.
I did a little homework on you. And so I think we got the best. Sometimes we're looking for, the old saying is, it might be good for us, but it ain't good. So I think they made the right choice in that. I know you're going to do it well. Let me ask you a couple questions, and I'm going to ask the chief. When did you decide to be a firefighter, and why?
I think it goes back a long time. Even before I graduated high school, my best friend, his dad was a captain with Atlanta Fire Rescue Department. I felt a calling. I've learned over my life that I have a servant heart, and my calling from God is to serve. And so I got with him, spending hours of how to be a firefighter, and at the time was to be an EMT. So right out of high school, I went to EMT school, became an EMT, and started working in the field, owning my craft, and waiting for the opportunity and applying to be a firefighter. And in the late 80s and early 90s, there was a lot of competition, and so it took me a couple years. I just kept my head down, kept doing what I needed to do, became a paramedic, kept building my resume, and Atlanta made the call. And as you said, the rest is history. So it's been a calling of mine, and I've been doing it for over 30 years. So still love it. Still out there. You may see me on Fridays dressed like everybody else in the blues. I think I scared some of them when I went to the station, and they're normally used to seeing chiefs in white shirts, and I walked up in my Nomex blues, and at first they had to take a double look, and they were like, "What do you?" I'm like, "Hey, we're a team, and that's what I want to build is a team." And so just letting them know, certain days you got to be the chief, but at heart I'm a firefighter. Okay.
I know where I come from a little town up there in Ohio, and I remember as a kid, I have never saw any minorities on the fire. And then I went back some years ago to visit, and I got a chance to see a couple minorities, and I think he retired as chief. I'm not for sure, but he was Chief Jackson, I think. And I knew then that times had changed.
Yes, ma'am.
So that's good there. Who was your career role model coming up?
Oh my goodness, I've had quite a few, but lately Chief Deron Wilson, Pat Wilson out of Coweta County. He was a Fulton County fireman for years, spent some time over in Charleston. Kelvin Cochran, when he really came in 2010, between that 2010, 2012 era in Atlanta, has really mentored and coached me to where I am today. One of my peers that I really rely on is Chief Roderick Smith, who is now the fire chief of Atlanta. So I've had a lot of great mentors throughout my career. I always tell people I've been blessed. And with Atlanta, I was able to do a lot of things at the state level. I am still on the state board of Georgia Fire Chiefs. Actually, in the conference that I'm going to, the election will move me to the second vice president in succession. And then I've worked with the International Association of Fire Chiefs. So I've worked with fire chiefs all over the world and continue to grow as a person and as a fire chief. And then through my connections with the International Association of Fire Chiefs and Harvard Kennedy School, I have mentors that are outside the fire department too. So sometimes in a position as chief, you have to deal with whether it's budgets, human relations, HR, planning and zoning. And maybe that's not the smartest person. So I call a friend of mine that may be a CFO or doing something in that realm and say, hey, what do I need to do? How can we move our department forward? What am I looking for? And actually coach and teach me. So it's all about learning and growing. And to me, being humble enough to say, I don't know. Let me reach out to someone, do my homework, come back to the table and make the best decision for our department and our city.
I like that. Chief Meadows, I'm gonna go with you. Who were your career role model?
Wow, I've had so many, but I have to go back to some of my earlier chiefs. And to this day, Eldrin Bell still calls me, and he'll see if I do a news interview and I say something that he doesn't like. Trust me, I'm gonna hear from him.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hear from him. He has been one that has really stayed with me over the course of my career. And I'm going to tell you a quick story because it was funny. Eldrin Bell took me out to lunch one day at the 911 club over at the Porsche facility. And I said, you remember when I was a young police officer, I was involved in a foot chase. I chased this guy. He had stolen a car and I chased him almost 5 blocks. And when you came up to me, you showed up on the scene and you said to me, officer, where's your hat? Now, Eldrin Bell had this policy that when you got out your car, you always had your hat on. It didn't matter. When he saw you, you had to have that hat on your head. And so I said, Chief, I have no idea. I said, I got out the car with it. And at some point it blew off my head. He said, you're supposed to have it. And he yelled at me about that hat. He said, you need to go see your supervisor. And you tell your supervisor, I said, to write you up. And I asked Eldrin Bell, and maybe 20, 25 years later, I said, do you remember that? He said, Keith, it never had anything to do with the hat. It never had anything to do with the hat. Every time you got out your car, what did you think about? I said, I thought about you in that hat. He said, that's right. You thought about me. And you were out there representing me. And so that's one of the things I never really, when you're a young kid, you think to yourself, oh boy, and Eldrin Bell used to get on me. He used to give me the blues. But at the end of the day, I am what I am because of the people that took time out to teach me things that really they didn't have to. And I have to say this about Beverly Harvard. She told me early in my career, she said, Keith, if you're going to be trained by the best. Mm-hmm. And so when you think about some of the things that I was able to accomplish during my 30 years in Atlanta, especially with respect to homicide investigations, I owe it to the training that she allowed me to go through. I was trained at Scotland Yard. I went over there for a long period of time to study murder investigations. I learned from the likes of some of the best in the country when it came to investigating murders. I sat at dinner with Thomas Harris, the guy that wrote The Silence of the Lambs, because he would come out and get with homicide personnel to try to pick our brains about different things for his novels and so forth. And so when you have that sort of exposure, it helps you in terms of the technical aspects of your job. Now, nothing prepares you for certain aspects of leadership other than experience. And what I tell my people is that nothing replaces experience. There's nothing that replaces it. You can have all of the talent in the world, but until you actually experience all of these different things and over the course of your career, you're not able to actually diffuse problems or get into the crux of problems and being able to solve them. So those two, between Beverly Harvard and Elgin Bell, I have to give both of them kudos. And then George Turner actually gave me my first shot at a command staff position. And so all of those people, I wouldn't be in this position right now if it weren't for their guidance.
Okay. Well, I know I remember when I moved to Georgia, I would watch a show, and I was like, well, who is that guy? Every time he get out of his car, he go to his trunk and get a hat. And I called you the Black Kojak. The only thing that was missing was the sucker. So just tell me, and you can answer it, and we'll go back to Chief. What do you want the police department to look like in the next 5 years in the city of South Fulton?
I want us to be at 250 police officers strong. When I first came over, Damita, I was hearing horror stories about our response times, and sometimes it was 2 hours that it took us to respond to certain types of calls. And so one of the first things I did was I got with Georgia Tech. We did a study on our beat alignment. We found out that the beats had not been redone in South Fulton since 1971. And you know, like I do, that the geographical landscape of South Fulton has changed significantly since that time. Now, I don't want to say that somebody fell asleep at the wheel, but in my time in Atlanta, I went through 5 beat realignments, and to not have one done since 1971, you know, I think, and I don't mind saying it was a little irresponsible, but we're going to pick up the ball with it from here and run forward. And we're going from 8 beats to 18 beats, which means you're going to have one police officer on each one of those beats. And so that basically shrinks the area. And so as we begin to add to our numbers, I also want to have a community police officer to address the quality of life issues that I'm hearing so prevalent in many of our communities now. Where I'm getting complaints. I don't get complaints about crime anymore. I get complaints about quality of life issues that's affecting our citizens. But here's where we are. Managing a crime rate takes so much personnel. Addressing quality of life issues requires so much personnel. Now, the mayor and council have been very good about giving me personnel, but what we don't want to do is try to recruit too many people at one time, because you need to get the very best people for this organization. And so adding to our numbers over the course of time, in my opinion, is the best course of action. It accomplishes 2 things. First, it keeps you from not shocking the budget. Second, it helps you to instill those standards that you want to see in your police department as it begins to grow organically, right? And so as we begin to look at our numbers and where we are, we're a little ways off from addressing quality of life issues consistently, but we're heading in the right direction, because what I want to do is have a community police officer for each one of the 7 districts. I want them to be able to put together a plan of action weekly to address those quality of life issues. We're just not there yet, but that's the ultimate vision that I see for us as we move forward. And that way, we'll manage the crime rate, we'll address the quality of life issues, and we'll have a more comprehensive approach, which is what our citizens are demanding. And I understand, but at the same time, it takes time to get to the place to where we ultimately want to be. And so I'm a very patient man, but then I'm impatient because I understand what our citizens are demanding, but I also understand that what the process requires as we move forward.
Okay, good. All right, Chief Jones, what you think?
I've actually had a couple of sit downs with Chief Meadows, and we have discussed this because as the realm of public safety transitioning from Fulton County, incorporating into the city, the fire department faces some of the same challenges as the police department does. Keith had the insight to reach out to the fire department when he did the Georgia Tech study. Chief Freddie Broom was here at the time and joined in. So part of that study also looked at fire station locations, fire station or fire department responses and type of calls. And again, that study also showed that we were, 3 to 4 stations short of where we need. Since I've been there, we've been looking at the district maps. District 2 and District 6 do not even in their boundaries have a fire station within those boundaries. So again, as we plan our strategic plan for the next 5 years, it's going to be the same thing following along with police, is increasing the public safety footprint. So for the fire department, not only increasing fire stations, which is going to increase personnel, increasing types of apparatus that respond to different types of calls. So in the fire department, we need to be an all hazard. We can respond to fire calls. We can respond to EMS calls, medical calls. We can respond to hazardous material calls. We used to be able to, and we need to get back to that, responding to water rescues and technical rescues. As our city's growing, we're getting more 3, 4, and 5-story facilities, which means we need to know how to rescue someone off of a 5th floor versus a 1st floor. Also, as we incorporate Fulton Industrial, we already cover that, but there's a lot of hazardous material over there. We also have rail yards. We have interstates where they are taking through hazardous materials. So like Keith said, I came from a background. If you're going to train, you're going to train with the best. You want to be the best. You want to be an accredited department and say, hey, everybody else calls on us. We don't rely on anybody else. We're self-contained. We can do it. Communities, we got to get into the communities. One area we need to grow in the fire department is my community risk reduction, bringing in education, more inspectors, more investigators, being out in the community, teaching fire safety, not just to the 3rd graders, but to the 5th graders, to the seniors, looking at our risk and really getting into the communities. If we reduce our risk, just like police, they try to reduce crime, which reduces their responses. If we can teach the community what causes the risk, whether it's fire safety, whether it's health issues, working with Department of Public Health, we reduce the calls. And then we're there when we need to. Again, one of the main complaints I've heard coming in is a response from our 3rd-party vendor who responds on EMS calls at transports. So it's already setting up meetings and letting them know what the standard's going to be and where we need to go forward to make sure that if someone's having a heart attack or a stroke or an asthma attack or a diabetic emergency, we can get to them, we can treat them, and we can transport them quickly. So that's my vision going forward is, again, like Keith said, you don't want to hire 100 people at one time because one, it's hard to train that. It's hard to instill what you want, your core values. The other thing is you cause another problem. We'll probably all be long gone in 30 years, but in 30 years, they're going to be wanting to retire. And if you hired a group of 50 or 100, you're going to lose 50 or 100 at a time. So you got to stagger them in. You got to be fiscally responsible, train them right, and then get them out there to serve the public. So you're going to see a lot of things from the fire department and probably the police department doing community engagement, community involvement, and teaching, educating, and being out there in the public. One thing I want to interject too right now, the fire department, we have kind of a leg up on the police department as far as hiring. We can hire someone in the state of Georgia at the age of 18. Police can't. So we're going to get the first shot at some of our high school seniors and things like that. But just like they have a cadet program, we're working with Fulton County Schools. We're working with Atlanta Technical College, trying to interject a cadet Explore program. And we're going to target like 9th and 10th graders, kind of instill and see who wants to step up and wants to become a firefighter, an EMT or paramedic, and really mentor and coach them through the high school. 11th and 12th grade, there's a program in the state of Georgia where there's dual enrollment. We can work with the technical school. We can get them through some fire training, some EMT training. And when they graduate, we can actually offer them a job, which reduces the hours they would need in our academy. Couple of things, through the state, it's free. So they're getting college credits. So maybe someone wants to become a nurse or go to become a doctor. They have credits through an accredited school. And but partner with them, it gives them a career path. Hopefully we can keep some of these young people within the community, bring them in, work in the fire stations, and give them a good career path for the next 30 years so they can build a life, a family within the community. So that's one of the goals we're really looking at, and hopefully to get up and off the ground soon. So maybe we can't do it by the start of this school year, but mid-year or next year, we should be able to do that and really be community focused.
Okay, I like that. And Chief Jones, could you tell me the percentage of women that's working with the fire department right now?
Actually, they just ran the numbers. I was given 11%. Now I've been there 3 weeks, so I haven't got down and actually counted people. But a slide presentation that was just done at the South Fulton U stated 11% within the department, but I believe that also includes civilians. So the next time we meet, I'm going to have those numbers broken down for you, exactly how many civilians versus sworn. But that is an area I want to target. In Atlanta, we actually worked with the local high schools and developed a program for young women in high schools, specifically for women, to encourage them to become firefighters. A mentor and friend is Chief Washington out of Decatur, who is one of the few fire chiefs in the world that's a female. And so seeing how we can recruit, that's the other thing is it goes back to recruitment and the culture of the fire department, making sure that it is inclusive, diversive, and welcoming for everybody to come in. And that's part of it. You talked about in the intro up north, it's changing the culture. And, one of the things too, it goes back to the facilities, upgrading our facilities. A lot of the facilities were built with single bathrooms, single bunk rooms, things like that. That's not very inclusive or inviting for people to say, hey, everybody's got to pile in this one room. So as we develop fire stations, we remodel fire stations. The URA is looking at doing some of that in the fire stations, but building them out so that we're inviting for everybody to come.
Okay, great. Let me ask you this, and I go back to the chief. What are the most important attributes of a firefighter? What and why?
I really think it goes back to the servant leadership and being humble. Firefighters, just like police officers, you're not there for the accolades, the rewards. Some of my fondest memories throughout my 30 years is actually when I was able to help somebody, whether it was resuscitating someone, showing up on scene. You have to have a different mindset and a different heart. When you go on scene, it's that person's worst day. And you have to be there to be composed, to do your job, to mitigate it, but then also be compassionate. Because whether it's a house fire, someone could have just lost everything they own, all their memories of, family members. They could have lost a family member. So it's really that servant heart, just going in there, being compassionate, being humble, doing your job, being professional, and really helping them at that point to start recovery, to get back what they lost. And there's nothing we can do to bring back what they lost, but being just a human and compassionate and helping somebody.
And I like that word, a servant heart, because in these times and days, everybody don't have a servant heart, and you got to have that servant heart. Chief Meadows, I'm gonna go to you with that question.
Okay. I'm sorry, Damita, can you repeat it again?
Okay.
What
aspects of the job appeals? Oh, I'm sorry, that's not it. What are the most important attributes of the police chief? And why?
It's going to be along the same lines that Chief Jones just said. You have to want to help people. And if you're in this job to get rich, you're going to be really disappointed because you have to be prepared to actually come in and understand that if you dive into the core values of the organization, you'll find yourself being more successful long term rather than not. And so when these young people understand that it's about the public, it's about me, it's not about me. Now, if I can take that attitude, because as the police chief, I understand that it's not all about me. But at the end of the day, we have to make sure that our people understand that you're here to provide a service.
Right.
And you may not always like what people have to say to you, but at the end of the day, it's about being able to navigate through circumstances like that. One of the questions I ask some of the people that come through when they're hired, I'll ask them, especially those that have been in the military, have you ever been spit on before? And if you have, tell me how you dealt with it. Because during the 1988 Democratic National Convention, I was a young police officer working in Atlanta, and I had to stand there in riot gear. And the protesters, I could feel the spit hitting me in the arm, and it was all over my face shield. And there's really not much you can do about it other than make sure you maintain your post. And that's one of the hardest things I've ever had to go through in law enforcement, but I had to endure that for the greater good of the community. And so if I understand the need to be that person, I also was raised in the church, and I also understand that a man that is slow to anger is greater than the mighty, right?
You better say that.
So it takes a lot to get yourself to that place. And when I say nothing replaces experience, if you ain't never been spit on, you don't know how you're going to respond to it, right?
Right, that's
I
right.
have been. So I already know, how I'm going to deal with it. But at the end of the day, as we began to grow, Damita, in different aspects of our jobs, you'll see a much different police department than the one you see here today. Are we perfect in every aspect of the job? No, we're not. Will we get better as time goes on and we experience more things as an organization? Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. Those are the sort of things that will define us as an organization. And so when my people get out of line, I spank them and I tell them why. I use discipline as a way of correcting behavior. I don't take a baseball bat to the back of anybody's head. I say, okay, you did this. It's not consistent with what we're trying to build in this organization. So I'm gonna have to deal with it. And people understand that as long as you're fair and consistent. And
Absolutely.
So those are the sort of things that I look for in police officers when they come.
Absolutely. Well, I know you guys have been dealing and watching the news this week about what's taking place with the killing, the 8 people that got killed. What do you think about that, Chief Meadows? And I'm gonna go to Chief Jones with that. What can we do to kind of heal the land, but we also have to call out the wrong? So tell me, what do you think about that?
I was really disappointed when I heard the reports coming out of Cherokee and some of the comments that were made. We have to be sensitive and we have to be mindful of what we say as leaders in our community. Absolutely. And what our expectations are. And when you start putting things out in the public, there's already this level of distrust there, right? And as a police chief, I have to own those injustices. I don't have the luxury of distancing myself from what was said in Cherokee or what might have happened in Ferguson, Missouri, or any of these other places throughout the country. And so if I own those as a police chief, and I come on to shows like yours and I explain what should be happening and what we don't have a tolerance for, I think that sends a much clearer message to the public. It does me no good to say, well, that doesn't happen in South Fulton, because to them, it's police is happening everywhere. And so I'm mindful of that. I'm sensitive to it. And so we really need to just have open dialogue and honest dialogue about what we're seeing. And for those people that don't think that systemic racism exists in certain levels within this country, I think they're fooling themselves. Now, it might exist to different levels in various places throughout the country. But at the end of the day, if you're looking at politicians that create legislation that undermines certain segments of our community, we have to be mindful of how that translates to, first off, other government entities like police. If you create legislation that's indifferent towards minorities in this country, that's sending a very clear message to fire departments, police departments, and other government entities throughout this country. And so we have to be mindful about that and have really open conversations about what that means and what we're seeing systemically throughout this country. And so I would say, to answer your question, having open discussions about what we're seeing and having honest discussions about that. People aren't going to always agree with what comes out of my mouth. And listen, I'm fine with that. But at the end of the day, if I'm speaking the truth, the facts are what they are, right?
Yes.
So.
Yes, Fire Chief Chad, what do you think about it?
I would echo Chief Meadows again, like you said, what's happening right now in the United States and in Georgia and things like that. People are fearful, and when people get fearful, it's when they act out and things like that. Having true, real conversations, bringing people to the table, and it's like that. You always say people got things in their closet, skeletons in their closet, things like that. All that's got to come out.
Yes.
And the root causes. And I tell them, had a conversation the other day. I said, well, what is the root cause of what's going on? Don't put a Band-Aid on it. Don't, just cover it up or whatever. Let's find the root cause, get down to the root cause, come up with solutions, real solutions, and move forward. I've said before, I want to build a team, a united team in the fire department, want to work with the police department. And again, when we go out in our communities, we have all different races, all different, sects. We have people that of all different walks of life. And it doesn't matter who they are, where they came from. We need to treat everybody with respect and dignity. And that's the way we're going to build a culture in the fire department and in the police department, is that's the culture. And when you start doing that, again, to put your head in the sand per se and say, well, it doesn't happen here. It does. It happens everywhere. And again, I believe what Meadows has spoke about. When you have leaders, we got to be conscious of the leaders we're putting in and listening to them. Now, again, what was in the news, my understanding is the spokesman from Cherokee had some things in some social media posts that pointed to who he was years ago or months ago or whatever. That should have already come out. You should have leaders that are willing to step up and have courage and say, call it out and say, this isn't going to happen here, and change the directions, trajectories. When I was with Leadership Atlanta, that was one of the things we looked at, is education and the trajectory of these young people and how there's hurdles and blocks. They say, well, you got to do this. No, take away those stumbling blocks. The trajectory of every kid in the United States should be the same. Same way with women, and not only the fire department, but other ways. There's barriers that put there, and they have to break through them. Take down the barriers, treat everybody the same, give everybody the same shot, and let's move forward as a country, and we'll be better off for it. If we continue to fight ourselves, a house divided will always fall.
Absolutely.
And so I'm with Chief Meadows, and that's one thing we're going to have when we go out to the community, is have one voice and move us forward as a public safety entity, and make sure our citizens know we're here for you, we're protecting you, and we'll provide services to you.
Yeah, I like that. And I'm a firm believer, what's in a man's heart is going to come out. I don't care how you do it. What's in him going to come out. Mm-hmm. Let me ask you, Chief Jones, and I ask the ladies this question also. I know when you get a call to the station, that the big truck come out, the big ladder truck come out. Have you guys thought about getting some SUVs or something that you wouldn't have to bring the big truck out for, just like a non-fire emergency?
Yes, ma'am. Kind of said that earlier, is when we evaluate everything is our response model. So one of the things, I have some simple organizational priorities, and our number one is the human resource factor, getting the right people in the right seats. The second is training them, professional development. Third is our emergency planning and response. Fourth would be facilities equipment. But to get back to that emergency response and planning, are we sending the right equipment to the right calls? And yes, ma'am, I've already spoke with the city manager and assistant city manager about that. Some use quick response vehicles, but again, being fiscally responsible, we have to build that out, see what it looks like. But yes, you can send smaller vehicles to rescue calls, which would several things. One, fire trucks are heavy. The pumpers, have water. There's several, tons. So running up and down the roads, they can tear up roads. Also, they're hard to stop. They're big, and they're dangerous to drive. So running a smaller vehicle to 72% of our call volume is those medical calls. So if we do have smaller vehicles, we can get there quicker. we reduce our risk, not only to ourselves, but to the citizens. And then, we can mitigate the cost. So responding the appropriate vehicles. Sometimes we need those big rigs riding down the road to get to the call. But again, it's identifying all of the risk. And when this happens, we send this. So yes, we are looking at that, and that will be in our 5-year strategic plan to move that way.
Okay. I'm gonna go back with you, Chief Jones. What is your primary goal of the fire department?
Right now, my primary goal is to assess it, to see all of our needs, and to really develop that plan. What I'm hearing from the men and women, the fire stations is where we're going. And that's what I want to do. I want to set that 5-year plan and a 20-year plan and say, this is the way we're going. We're going to be hiring people. We're going to be training people. Here's to the level we're going to be training, developing a career path. So a firefighter, when they come in, if they want to make fire chief one day, here's the entire plan. This is how they do it step by step. Working with Keith Meadows, one of the things we know is our training facilities are not where they need to be. And for the fire department, having a training facility, having a building that we can actually train to burn in, to rappel off of, is one of our top priorities. So training and professional development are something we're really going to start employing. Officer development, leadership development, all the way through.
Okay. What about you, Chief Meadows?
So I have to echo what Chief Jones just said. Making sure that we have the right types of facilities is going to be extremely important for us. Chief Jones and I have talked briefly about collaborating on certain types of training facilities so that we can make sure that we're developing our employees. It's one thing for us to talk about personnel development, but we have to make sure that we have the infrastructure in place to make sure we're doing it according to the values that we want to really see. One of the things we looked at when I first came in was our deficiencies and where we were lacking in terms of talent in certain areas of the police department. And we really started training to those deficiencies. Now we have kind of a leg up on the fire department because we're able to get seized assets from drug investigations. And so to that end, we're able to use those monies for training and making sure that we have the right types of equipment for our personnel. And so we've been very fortunate in that regard. And so we've been sending our people, if you've been listening to Chief Jones and I, you're hearing a lot of the same types of core values coming out and the same types of leadership style. That's because we came from the same leadership program down at Columbus State. It's actually a master's program, but we came through there and we were able to, get a lot of leadership training. Well, right now, what I've done is I have 2 members of our command staff that we're sending down to Columbus State, and they're getting their masters down there, and we're paying for it through those drug funds. Well, my goal is to make sure that all of our command staff goes through this program and get their master's degree as they're going through, as they're coming up the ranks. And that's extremely important because what I told the mayor and council is that I want to be the only police chief that they have to hire from outside of this organization. And in order for that to happen, we have to start building leaders internally. I'm really proud about the diversity within the police department. You asked Chief Jones the question earlier, what percentage of the fire department is women? Well, the police department is 33%, and we're actively recruiting even more. And we actively recruit in the LGBTQ community as well. We have to make sure that all segments of our community is represented within this organization. And so we actively recruit wherever we can to find good, viable candidates. And so that's going to be the calling card for us as we move forward. And we're going to continue to make sure that we diversify this police department.
Okay, I like that. I'm asking, you can answer this if you wish. Have Chief Jones and you sat down with the mayor and talked about how he would like the city to go in the in the police department?
Well, I can jump in. I know that Keith and myself have not directly sat down with the mayor. I won't say daily, but since I've been there, I met with him before I actually started. And I talk to the mayor probably 2 or 3 times a week. Even yesterday, I'll give a little shout out, the fire dog Sparky. So our fire education, he just turned 70 years old, and we had a birthday party for him, you know, fire education and stuff. And the mayor was back there supporting. So the mayor has said since day one, you know, he wants to see the fire department grow. He wants to fully support us in the direction, the vision we have set, core values and things like that. So I know it won't be long that, again, myself, Chief Meadows, we have sat down together with the city manager and have thrown some ideas out. And as we move forward, making sure that we're working together as public safety. So I think I answered what you were asking.
And you know, before COVID, the mayor and I used to sit down every week, every Monday at 11 o'clock. We had a meeting, and we would talk about some of the direction of the police department. But after COVID hit, we just pushed most of those conversations to phone calls. Mm-hmm. And so we're very clear. I think, you know, from all aspects of the leadership within the city, we're very clear on what direction public safety will take over the next 3 to 5 years. It's really just a matter of us sitting down and making the rubber meet the road. And so I believe in Chad's leadership, and I think that as we move forward, we'll see a lot of synergy between the police and fire department.
Yeah. And just like Keith had mentioned too, is that was a conversation I had. You go back to Fulton County. Fulton County had 4 fire chiefs over its entire existence. I'm actually the 5th in the 3 years of the city of South Fulton, 2 permanent and 2 interim. And that was one thing that I made very clear, that when I came in, I was looking for a long tenure, you know, 10, 12 years or whatever. But I had the same goals and aspiration as Keith does, to build leaders within the department, to when the day that I do step away, like Keith does, they never have to. There's plans and programs in place, and there's enough internal candidates for every position. And you know, it's good competition, but it's working as a team. And they had the hard decision of who to select to replace us when we leave. But they don't have to look outside. We have world-class leaders that are on the world-class stage day in and day out. So that's our plan. Like you said, from Command College down at Columbus State University, I know he's done training outside of not only the state, but also, you know, the United States. You know, I've been to Canada. He's been to, I don't know if he went to, was it Israel or whatever?
Yeah.
But we look outside. Who's teaching the best? And we need to have our people in there so we have the best. And so that's kind of the common goal we have together. And then once we get to a certain level, that's how Keith and I work together, because in Atlanta at certain levels, leadership became leadership, supervision. So we had public safety, Patrick Labatt, same thing, been in classes with Sheriff Labatt, so know him well, work with him. He mentored me some when he was the chief of corrections in Atlanta. So it's working together and working for the common good at all levels. And so that's what we're trying to do.
And I like that. And listen, and hearing from both of you guys, I can tell that you went to the same training, that you're on the same page, and it's good to be on the same page. And I'm gonna throw a shout out. You know, I often talk to the mayor. I hadn't talked to him in the last couple of weeks, but when I call him, I kind of give him what I think, and he'll listen, and what I hear in the community. And I want to say, Chief Jones, he gave you some high accolades. He said, Damita, you guys going to be in good hands down there. You got to trust us. And so I'm going to trust the mayor, and I feel pretty good about what we have going on in the city of South Fulton. Let me ask you, in the next, I'm just going to go and ask the question what is the experience like working, Chief Jones, in the city of South Fulton? And you can be honest, you've just been there a couple weeks, so you can be honest.
I don't know, and I'll tell Keith, I don't know, we always joke about the honeymoon phase or whatever, but it's been great. Everybody's been receptive. I've been meeting a lot of people, talking with council, talking with the mayor. Again, I'm not the type of leader that sits behind a desk. You know, I'm out in the stations, I'm out in the community, and it's great. Everybody's been helpful. Everybody's been so receptive. And what I ask everybody to do is just be open, honest, and transparent. We can't move forward as a department if people will not tell me the truth. You know, I'm like, just tell me the truth. Let's, again, go back to an earlier statement. What is the root causes? Like Keith said, where's our deficiencies? You know, what do we need to fix? I think a lot of people come in and they're thinking, oh no, you got a new chief and we're going to do changes. I came right out of the gate and said, you know, you won't see changes right off the bat unless it has to do with quality of life or life safety. If it's working, let it work. If it needs to be tweaked, let's tweak it. If we need to implement it, let's implement it. If it needs to be changed, let's change it. But again, that's me. I'm kind of the open book. I wanted people to get to know me, get to know what I stood for, and again, build that team aspect. As Keith said, when you have to hold people accountable, you hold them accountable, and you don't dilly-dally around it. I mean, when it happens, and being open, honest, and transparent. And again, it has been more than I expected. And again, I drive to work every morning with a smile on my face. If you get to City Hall, I'm there about 6:30, 6:45, ready to go. And and so it's I'm just again, I'm happy. So
Okay.
it's all good.
Great. Chief Meadows, I know you guys have been getting some heat in the past months and weeks about an incident that took place. You don't have to go into that case, but just say if I fell in that category, I'm gonna use me. What would you expect your officers to do different?
So, you know, the nature of policing dictates that something's going to happen. I mean, you're going to have confrontations. You know, I mentioned the spitting incident earlier, where someone was spitting on me at the Democratic National Convention. We train our police officers to diffuse situations, and on occasion, you allow your anger, or you allow your emotions to kind of make decisions for you, and in many cases, it's not acceptable. You know, and so when I look at videotape, because everybody has videotape now, I have to see a circumstance where you've tried to diffuse a situation. And you heard me mention earlier when I talked about using discipline, the goal of discipline is to correct behavior, right? And so if you don't set a standard within your organization of this is how we want citizens to be treated, then you wind up with a Ferguson, Missouri type of police department. And so that starts with me, right? And so it's one thing for me to say it, but it has to come from my mouth to their feet. And so is that going to translate every single time? No, it's not. I mean, and that's just the nature of policing. When you're dealing with personalities, you're going to deal with different levels of skill. And so we try to get our people all up to the same skill level, but you heard me say earlier also, nothing replaces experience. I've experienced 1,000 things over the course of my 34 to 35 year career. Everybody don't have those experiences. And so you have to see where people are in various stages of their career. You have to see if you're able to save them. If you're not, then you have to cut ties with that person. If you are, then you develop them so that they get to that place. If I took a baseball bat to the back, and I use this analogy because it's probably the most graphic that I can think of. Every time a police officer did something that I didn't like, we wouldn't have a police department, right? Because like I said, I've experienced a lot of different things over the course of my career, but everybody has not. And so we have to make sure that as we're dealing with our people, we're developing them, they're taking those marching orders, they're going out on the street and they're exercising them according to the training that we give them. Now, if I didn't give you training in that area and you go out and do it, that's one thing. But if I give it to you and you go out and do it, then we have to sit down and have some conversations, right? And so that's the way I really approach those sort of situations. I don't just look at what the officer did. I look at the other side too, and to be fair with our officers. And so if it's your goal to test the skill set of our officers, I'm perfectly fine with that all day, because it tells me where I have problems. It tells me where we have to get better as an organization. And so advocacy is a very good thing. And I don't turn a blind eye to it. But I also have to understand both sides of it when I'm making my decision. And so when my police officers see me making decisions, I'm doing it fairly and consistently. And when the community sees that I'm making decisions, I'm doing it fairly and consistently.
Okay, all right. Well, look, God, I'm looking at that time. That hour went so quick.
I know we need. Hey, Damita, shame on you for just giving us 1 hour. You know, I'm a talk.
Yeah, look, and I knew you was gonna say that. Well, y'all gave us extra 30 minutes, and we would have, but we got another show coming up. Okay. But we're gonna get you back on. We're gonna be following you guys. I want to thank you guys for coming out on a Saturday to just give me your thoughts. We're here to support you, Chief Jones, whatever way you can. And then when COVID is lifted up, we're going to give you something special to welcome you on board of the city of South Fulton. And that's coming from my organization. Again, I want to thank you. So in closing, Chief Jones, you want to have something to say in closing? We got like 3 minutes.
Yes, ma'am. I'll keep it short. Like Keith said, you know, we're both talkers, so you got to give us some time. I want to thank you for this opportunity to come on, ask us the questions. Again, I think Keith would echo my sentiment. We're here to serve not only the departments, but to serve the community. And we're here to answer the hard questions. We're the ones that are the leaders of the organization. So if you have a question, if you have a concern, you know, you can reach out and ask us anytime. I would love to come back, whenever you ask and talk about more things in the development. Because again, the more we talk again and have real conversation, the better we are as a community. So thank you very much. And I look forward to more conversations with you.
Thank you. And before we go, I want you guys to stay on. So the producers are going to take a couple pictures of us. Chief Meadows.
I'm really excited. My good friend Chad is here with us. I know about the comments, and I saw them on social media when he was first announced. But let's judge us by the accomplishments that we have over the course of the next 3 to 5 years, and I believe that with the team that we have in place, not just in public safety, but throughout the city. I'm looking at our city manager, Miss Sadler Jones, and when I talk about experience, I mean, she has it. When I look at our assistant city manager, and so I can't tell you how much we've been able to fix in such a short period of time since she's come on. And this isn't a knock on the previous city manager, because at the end of the day, you're supposed to make progress. This is a brand new city, and 3 years. Listen, it's a brand new city. And so what we want to do is make sure that once you bring that experience in, that we're progressing and not regressing as a city. And I believe the things that we've been able to accomplish in the short period of time that she's been here, I mean, it's been astronomical in my opinion. And I look forward, and I'm excited about the future as we move forward.
Yes. I agree with you 100. I've been watching her, and she's outstanding. I'm looking for her to be with us at least 20 years. Again, I want to thank you so much. We down to 1 minute where we gonna close out. Again, thank you guys. You guys have a good day.
Thank you.
I think she might have already taken the pictures.
Oh,
if not, she'll take them, and then we'll go out. Again, thank you guys so much.
All right. Thank you, Damita, for having us.